Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and this is a really fun podcast for me because I am on Zoom with Vitória Vasconcellos. I tried. She's in Brazil. Hey, Vitória.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me, and great job on the pronunciation. That was great.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Vitória clearly helped me before we started recording with the pronunciation. But she is down in Brazil. I'm up in Los Angeles, so we are on Zoom. So I apologize from the front if you think the sound quality isn't perfect. You know, modern era. You got to use Zoom nowadays. So Vitória is here because her film, Pathei Mathos, is that close? It was at the Sherman Oaks Film Festival last year in 2021. It was in the Art House Experimental category for short film. And damn, that film is good. It is so good. And we had a great screening in the theater. I believe you were in like a great block of films. And it was a full theater of people, I think, and like great Q&A. Everyone really appreciated your work. And I'll add, Pathei Mathos is in the Discover Indie Film TV series. This podcast got me talking to so many filmmakers, and I found out that the features always ended up on streaming platforms, and the shorts honestly kind of disappeared into the oceans of YouTube and Vimeo. Even like there's great things like Omeletto that like every once in a while highlight a short on YouTube. So I talked to a bunch of the people who've done the podcast with shorts, and I was like, should we put all the shorts together and make a TV series? And they said yes, and it ended up on Amazon Prime. So go to Prime Video, hopefully on a big-ass TV, because you should not watch beautiful films on a phone. I mean,
yes, turn all your lights off.
Turn the lights off, turn off the phone, or at least put it face down, and go to the Prime Video app on a smart TV, type in Discover Indie Film, and Vitória's film is actually in season 7. It's in episode 2, because I finally have the lineup.
Oh, nice.
In fact, it's all uploaded. Yeah, and...
it's uploaded now? I didn't know. Oh, that's so exciting.
Well, it's uploaded and waiting for Amazon's approval. But
I see. Okay.
They approve it for technical purposes. And by season 7, I think we've got the tech stuff down.
Okay.
It used to be so many hurdles, but now we're good. Yeah, so that comes out January 15th. I think this podcast will come out a couple weeks after that, probably in February. So... okay. That's the introduction. I think that's the introduction. I don't know if we have to add anything else. And I'm just really eager because besides being a citizen of the world, I mean, you're from Brazil. I know you went to USC. I know the film started at USC at least, or you did it with collaborators from there. I don't know if it was an actual student project.
It wasn't.
I remember it correctly that you did it after school for yourself.
Well, it happened while I was at USC. I was a junior, but it wasn't an official school project. But you are right when you say that it kind of started at USC because everything sort of did film-wise for me. And I shot that movie almost on campus. It wasn't officially on campus, but a couple of blocks away. Almost all of our locations, save for the soccer field location and the warehouse. Those two were kind of in different parts of LA, but everything else was like my not dorm room. It was an apartment by the dorms. But anyways, like everything happened in the USC area with a cast and crew. The cast is entirely from USC, and the crew is like 99.9% of USC people or students from other schools. So although it's not an official film for the school, it's a movie that is very much like a product of our USC connection.
For sure, but it's very cool that your creativity could not be limited. You know, in my opinion, someone who's going to film school or and is so creative that they're just like, even in my spare time, I'm going to do more work. I think that's very cool. And I call you a citizen of the world because, hey, we're on Zoom now. And before we started recording, you showed me the wall and like there's a Yale banner because you did a summer program there. So, I mean, you are a global citizen.
I think that's fair to say. I went to the U.S. for the first time on an exchange program when I was 12, and then again at 14, and then at 15, I was kind of living in the U.S. as a foreign student. And I finished high school there, eventually went to USC. So I spent time in Boston, Maine, and then California. Then I moved to Australia for a semester and then back to USC. And then during quarantine, I spent some months in Mexico City and Chile, but Chile was kind of the shortest. I didn't really get to explore Chile much, but I think it's fair to say that I have been in a couple of different places at this point.
Excellent. Yeah, you just got to, as a filmmaker, you got to throw in a year or two in Paris or something. But
yeah, I'm really hoping to add Paris or Prague or Berlin to my the places I've lived list. I hope that it happens soon. I'm trying to make plans. I've heard this from more than one person after seeing my films that I should spend some time in Europe, and I'd love to. I'd love to spend time anywhere. So
it's funny. You're making me think I should have, like, obviously, like, scheduling kills this, but it would be so fun to have, like, an international Zoom chat of all the people who have a film in Discover Indie Film who live outside the U.S. because like, there's someone in Prague. Like, I bet this woman who made a beautiful dance film and she lives in Prague, she'd be like, oh, there's a filmmaker who wants to visit Prague. Heck, I got a guest room. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, let's start this filmmaker exchange program. Let's do that. People can come to Brazil. I'm from Recife. That's in the northeast of Brazil. There are so many beautiful movies made here. And people should come visit and learn about our films, just like I want to visit different places and learn about their films. So let's make that happen.
All right. Well, I always start the podcast, although we're well into it, but I ask about, personal history and especially your creative history. So you shared how much you traveled around during your schooling and stuff. Were you always a creative kid? Like, even growing up in Brazil, were you a writer, or did you start playing with cameras early?
Not with cameras, I guess, but I think that I was an actor before I was a person. I was in drama school and drama clubs like all my life, and I knew I wanted to do it, but it's, as it often happens with like Latin American families and I'm sure other families, being an actor is not really considered like a good career path. I come from a family of doctors and people like just mostly doctors really, but my friends are lawyers or doctors or engineers or, kind of serious, quote unquote, serious professions. So it was difficult for my family to see that it was a career path. And that's kind of what made me study abroad, because the rule in my family has always been, fine, you can be whatever you want to be, but you really have to do your best to educate yourself to be, at the top of your game. So my family always valued education a lot. So I started wanting to study abroad, and every school that I have been to, I have been a member of the theater troupe or whatever, and have always loved films and did a lot of writing. I started editing kind of soon too, because that was the one thing that I could afford, sort of. I didn't know much about cameras or anything, but I liked editing. So all my projects in school, I would turn them into like a video project instead of a presentation. But then when I went to USC has this reputation, right, for being this big time film school. And I started there as a journalism and acting major, because the journalism was kind of like a compromise with my parents because I liked writing. Arriving at USC, that's when I realized that film is more than a passion and a hobby. Like, there's people that get money and make a living out of film, and not just famous people. Like, their credits are so long after every film. You can sit there for like 20 minutes sometimes, and there are so many names. And I'm looking at these names and I'm like, all these people, that's their job. They do this. They make movies and then they get money and then they eat and pay rent and sleep. And, it is possible that I could do that. Like, I'm a person, I qualify. So at USC, I kind of realized that it could be more than a passion. And then with acting, everything kind of like connected, because I knew I wanted to be an actor, but I really had no patience to kind of wait and have my career, especially the beginning of my career, be controlled by other people. Because that's what kind of happens when you're an actor, right? You get cast in roles, and that's kind of arbitrary, and you don't play roles that necessarily challenge you and make you a better actor. And that bothers me so much, this idea of like staying still and being the same actor that I was last year. So I started writing characters in short films where, I would write a character for myself that I thought was really difficult to play, something that I thought I was really bad at, or that I wanted to, develop. And then when I started writing, I would just direct my own self. And when you direct and write, you might as well just produce. And then I just became well versed in like the independent, no money at all filmmaking life. And then when I went to film school, it kind of all made sense to me, like that I fell in love with being in front of the camera first and then behind the camera later. But everything kind of married, like it felt like I was finally giving 100% of myself to one thing, instead of just like giving a little bit to, journalism, and then a little bit to writing, or a little bit to film. When I did both of them, it just felt like it was right. So that's kind of how I got to be a film student at USC. And I also studied acting at USC, but then I later dropped out of the acting program and studied acting outside of USC for 2 years in a conservatory in LA that I just finished this year.
Wow, fascinating. So, I mean, that whole story is fascinating. I'm just curious. So you were making your own indie shorts essentially, even at the high school age, like before university? Or
no, before university, I never made anything that I would call a short film. It was just, I would be the person taking photos and making videos. And I have a lot of I'm the author of all of our family, videos, and I would edit everything. I'd be really into that. Like my sister's 15th birthday party, which in Brazil is a big deal. In Latin America is a big deal. When a girl turns 15, there's like a whole thing. We don't call it quinceañera here, but I guess the principle is the same. I made her like a video of people singing. So it was kind of like a music video. So I would say that is the first like real thing that I made. So I knew my way around. I always had like a camera. My parents would give things like film related things to me for my birthday. Even before they knew that was going to be my profession. So I was always very enticed by this world, but only discovered that there was a place for me in it when I went to USC.
And I totally get and respect. I mean, it completely comes together that you like writing stuff that challenges yourself. Because I got to admit, it's not the reason I love Pathei Mathos, but the fact that the writer-director, like I always just watch the films and I don't read any of the info. I just take whatever's on I just figure the filmmaker wants me to see what's on the screen. They don't want me reading about it first. But then, I finish a film like yours and I see, okay, she wrote and directed this thing, co-produced it with some people, and she's the lead performer, and she beats the crap out of herself and out of her character, I should say. And I mean, I just have to applaud it a little extra, because Lord knows a lot of times when actors produce material for themselves, their goal is almost like, let me show myself in the best, like, let me glamorize myself and let me do this and let me and you literally take this character you play and, you thrash her around and show her worst day ever, I imagine, if it's a day. If it's it's a course of one day. Yeah, you're right. Like my mom has jokes about this all the time, that her dream is that I'm in like a rom-com or something, that I play like a lighthearted character who doesn't die or who doesn't get beat up or who doesn't drown. Doesn't die, isn't bleeding from her face throughout the film. And
she's very she's waiting for that day. But I know what you mean. And I feel like there is, when you do, especially when you direct yourself, I think that I am like just waiting for the accusations of narcissism to come. And to some extent, like I totally understand why people would assume that I'm a narcissist for putting myself in my own movies. But I really believe in what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I know that the reason I only play characters that I write, and I'm like, when I'm directing, that I write and I'm like, oh, I really don't think I can do this. Like, that's going to take me such a journey. I'm going to learn so much trying to play this character. And every time I do it, I feel like it's a stronger failure. You know, I see things that I want to improve, but I'm like, okay, I think this was stronger than the last time. I'm learning how to conquer these challenges that I'm setting for myself. And so far, what attracts me a lot is just the idea of female perseverance and survival. That's something that I've seen in different ways, in all of these places that I've been. And I was raised mostly by female role models, and those were the people that I saw the most and from whom I learned the most as well. So I'm really interested in that. So far, it hasn't made sense to me to do something that is a little lighter. Although I do think this day will come, and I'm not going to judge myself if I look good in a movie. That's not the point. But so far, these topics are more interesting to me and really make me step out of my comfort zone. If I start the movie thinking that I have it all and that, oh, this is going to be a walk in the park, a piece of cake, then there's something wrong. I should not be the one playing that character. And I kind of feel like that should be how all actors should feel in any role. A role shouldn't be something that is like a mathematical sort of, oh, okay, I do this and then it's done. No, it should like tease you and challenge you and make you feel vulnerable. And that's how I want to feel as an actor, and also master, as an actor.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you 1,000%. And I can't help but also look at a bigger context of filmmaking and the entertainment industry, and the fact, I mean, I can't ignore the fact that the role of the female gender in film for the longest time was to sit there and look pretty. And we've had enough of that. So, I mean, how many films are there where a lead male character gets the crap beat out of him? Like a ton. And everyone respects those actors. So the fact that someone would turn to you and expect you to pretty it up or something, like no one says that, to Kevin Spacey, or bad example, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, bad example, but I feel like I know what you mean. In my mother's case, she just like hates seeing me. Like I explained to her that it's a movie and that everything was safely done and I did not get hurt, but she believes that the movies are very real. So I guess it's a compliment to my filmmaking that she always, actually thinks that I am getting beat up or, drowning or dying. But I see what you mean. And I think that, anybody from the Northeast or Latin America or any place that is less represented in films, just by virtue of us making movies, we do have, I don't know, it is like in a minor sense, kind of a little groundbreaking that we do these things, given how hard people push against. And yeah, there's so many more groundbreaking, like Latin American people making films that inspire me to kind of continue to do my thing and not have to like respond to any sort of like traditionalism or prudism that would come from the status quo.
Yeah, and I got to admit, part of me hates myself for bringing up the greater context, because I can't wait till we don't have to talk about it anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But for now, I can't help but say bravo in every way, because besides being it's just absolutely great film. And then in the context of how the film medium handles women, like, you're just doing it right. So golf clap, bravo. But I love that also. It sounds like that's not your concern. When you're writing something, you're writing it just to tell the best story and to challenge yourself.
Yeah, it definitely started. I mean, the very like beginning of it was just like from my perspective of like, how can I be a better actor? And then I got into film school and I started learning about story and narrative and script writing, which is something, all of these things are like an ongoing, school. Like you learn more about it, the more you make it, the more you watch good movies, the more you go to film festivals and talk to other artists. So it definitely started with just me wanting to like create circumstances and opportunities that would make me grow as an actor. And then the more that I learned about the structure of story and the lack of structure of story, like Pathei Mathos, that was all about breaking with structure. the more I learned about all the different parts of filmmaking, because that's the thing. You go to film school, and even though I act and direct and write the most, in film school, you do everything. Like I've done a ton of art, like of production design and art directing, which is something that I think really shows in, or at least it has made me place an importance that's really, really big in those parts of my movies. Like I never, like it's one of the first meetings that I have. It's with art directing. I DP'd as well, which is definitely a weakness of mine, but it has helped me speak the language of cinematographers and help and kind of like understand how we can communicate better to achieve what we want to achieve. So in this process of speaking, learning all these different languages and experimenting behind the camera, I think it just makes you understand that it's more about your own character. And I like to believe that the movies that I make become less about just me challenging myself. It's always that's always included, but now there's also a sense of a greater story. Like, what do I want to say to the world with this movie? Like, how can I use what I have or learn different techniques to achieve this one thing that I'm trying to convey, you know?
Yeah. And same way you seem to be a person who wants to always challenge yourself as an actor, you also challenge yourself as a storyteller, right? Because this was, I mean, I assume it occurred to you that, wow, this was a pretty ambitious story to tell.
I guess, I mean, to be honest, I don't think it really, like the ambitious part of it didn't really occur to me. With other stories that I tell, it often does, because they all start from a place of 100% like fiction. And this is the one thing that I've done, that although all stories are based on things that I've felt and imagined, you know, like sometimes things that I've witnessed, you know, like that's how my writing begins. It's hardly ever just like a fantasy, you know, it's based on, everything is based on, you know, something intimate and vulnerable that I've experienced. But Pathei Mathos is the only short film that I've made that is directly based on an experience that I had. Like it's not biographical because it's not factual. But when I was making a movie in 2020, I had just returned from living in Australia, and I was at USC during the summer, and I was making a movie that was being directed by Evan Siegel, who is the editor and associate producer of Pathei Mathos. Evan was directing that movie and that I had written, and we were producing it together. It was just something we were doing for the summer, and I got hit by a car. And my leg was broken, like shattered in a bunch of different parts. And I was taken back home to Brazil, operated on a couple of times, and told that there was no way of telling if I was going to be able to walk without limping ever again. And I was like, this was 2018. I was 20 at the time. So it was this really, like, I spent months like on a wheelchair and then a walker and then crutches and then doing physical therapy every day, really focused on getting back my life and not being like impaired for the rest of my life because of this. So it was a time where I experienced a lot of PTSD, which is something that it was new to me. And yeah, like all these new feelings came, and I didn't know how to best organize them in my head. My solution was actually to go and make a film. So I was acting in a couple of films while my leg was still broken on a cast, just because I had to. And then eventually and then this happened over the summer. And then the next year when I was already back, I took a semester off school to learn how to walk again. But when I was back, I didn't want to write Pathei Mathos because I didn't want to exploit my own pain and torture myself like that, or to like go around the world being like, hey, come watch my trauma movie. Like, I hated that idea so much. I thought it was so like exploitatory. Like, it was just not something I wanted to do. And then came one night where it just like came out like a vomit. I just sat down for a night and then I wrote it. And the next thing I knew, I was making it because it just had to be done. That chapter had to be closed that way. And the story is not exactly how it happens in the movie. There's lots of like creative liberties. First, I guess, to like protect myself, but then mostly, it got to a point where I thought recording it was going to be really difficult, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't, it didn't remind me, like shooting the scenes didn't remind me of my own accident or anything. It was so different. And so, there was such an element to, I guess, fantasy to Pathei Mathos when we shot it, that it just made me be like inhabit a different person in a different world, and always driven by, I want people to get close to the trauma experience without having had trauma, or feeling like, they can't understand it because they haven't suffered from it. Like, how close can I get someone to understand what this is without having, to have a traumatic experience? And that's what I wanted to experiment with, like how close I can get to people despite having a screen between us. But yeah, but that's why, like, the situation of Pathei Mathos was a little different, because I haven't written anything else that is that dialogues so closely with like a major event of my life.
Yeah, but it sounds like what you just did something wonderful, which is you took that inspiration, you took that trauma. I mean, you tell a very different story, I think, than what you go through, right? Because what and by the way, I was in a bad car accident once, and I totally understand what you mean about trauma and like triggers and things, right? Like, I would find myself like in someone else's car, and if someone like kind of like jerked towards our car, I would like shout, because like it stays with you when you have a long recovery. So, yeah. And instead in Pathei Mathos, you tell quite a different story. Really, I mean, and the accident is different. So yeah, you really just use it as inspiration. Yeah, it wasn't exploitative or anything. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I hardly ever actually mention that. I think when we go to festivals, when people ask about like how the story came about, like I have no problem in sharing that this happened to me, but I definitely make an effort to not try to have this be like a selling tool for the movie. Like not to be, not that having a movie that like immediately dialogues with your personal like pains is a bad thing, but that's just not how I wanted Pathei Mathos to exist in the world. Like, the whole idea behind it is that even though no trauma looks the same, I wanted people to understand that the complexity of this, of like living an ordinary life while being traumatized. Something that looks so silly and simple to you, to someone else may be a great challenge because of what they've been through. Like, you don't know other people's stories. I don't know other people's stories. And my hope was that Pathei Mathos was gonna allow people to be more understanding of people that we know and are living with pain and trauma.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about, I mean, you tell me how much you want to share. Obviously we're urging people to watch it.
Yeah,
but in the process of writing it, like, when did you the creative? Because it's an amazingly creative film, and the way the narrative is broken into chunks and settings, and the way there's transitions, and honestly, like it might be my favorite breaking of the fourth wall in forever, because I think maybe it's because of Ferris Bueller. I don't know. But normally people just turn to the camera and they talk, right? And your character just every once in a while, not much, it's so subtle, but you just, by the way, talk about great acting. But like when you give that look right into the camera, it's like, damn.
Thank you, Jeff. Dude, no, I appreciate that. And it's funny, especially with the fourth wall breaks, because, well, first thing that you mentioned about like the structure being like all jumpy and nonlinear, that was something that I knew from the start that I wanted, just because it's really simple. My experience with trauma was that it was not linear, and it was not pretty, and it wasn't something that I could Hollywood people into understanding this. Like, I couldn't just continuity editing people into, like, I wanted people to have an experience. And the truth is, and I think this is true for all my movies, if I care a lot less about you understanding every single plot point than you having an actual experience. If you leave the movie theater feeling something, then I feel like I've done something with my movies. But if you don't feel anything but understand all the plot points, then I feel like I failed you as a creator. So it's okay if you're confused by the movie. It's okay if you are not sure of things. At least I think it's okay. Maybe this sounds like I'm justifying myself, but I truly wanted an experience, not like a lesson or something. So it was important to me that you as the audience would be as much in it, immersed in this experience as possible. And there's so many qualities and techniques that come from experimental filmmaking, avant-garde filmmaking, as people would say, and even genre filmmaking that we use in Pathei Mathos to help you understand the discomfort and to feel a little weirded out and to feel maybe like some moments are too loud or too much, because that's the nature, I think, of trauma. Although my hope is not that everyone that has that trauma will look at the movie and be like, wow, this is exactly my experience. That will never happen. Everyone's experience is different. What can happen and has happened is just people coming up to me and being like, hey, this is not how I felt, but it really like dialogues with how, things happened for me. I can see myself in this movie, even if it's not the specific way that I had my trauma happen to me. So that was really important, like the whole making the movie like a crazy structure, let's say.
Well, and I'll add to that, because I love what you said about audiences and that you don't want everything so clearly delineated to them that you're telling them exactly what to feel. Is I'll say you're trusting your audience. You're saying, I trust you to bring what you're going to bring and get something out of this. Because if you, I think that's one of the things we hate most about big Hollywood filmmaking is that they just pander and they make everything, they never trust their audience, right? So they're like, let us tell you exactly how to feel right now with this music and with this voiceover and this. And it's like, maybe you could trust the audience to figure some shit out for themselves.
Right. And you said something that I think is super important. I think that we have to look at movies as a two-way street. You can't have a movie without an audience. And I guess you can, but it would be very sad and lonely. And what we try to do with Pathei Mathos is a conversation, not like an imposition. So however you come with whatever background and feeling you come to the movie, that will play a part in your experience of the movie. That happens to anything in life, like your context, your given circumstances, as actors would say, will affect the way that you relate to the world. And with Pathei Mathos, it wasn't different. We showed an experience that you could get. We gave you a chance to like get immersed in this experience through the filmmaking techniques that we used. And then you kind of do the rest. Like you get in as deep as you'd like and feel as much as you're available to. And I think that's an important thing. That's why I wanted to make this movie about the experience of trauma, because I feel like I had only seen movies that were about veterans coming back from war. And I had to do research to find movies that were about real people experiencing non-war related or non-like violence like that related trauma. So there's this assumption that you have to be heroic or you have to be in this really extraordinary circumstance to feel trauma, which is something that we wanted to kind of break in the movie, because anyone, anywhere, for any reason can have trauma, And we make a point to say that in the movie that she has undiagnosed PTSD, because this is not supposed to be like a movie, like we didn't consult health professionals for this movie. This was like a creative interpretation of a personal feeling that I've had, and some people in the crew helped as well with their own experiences to make it more visual and help people dialogue with this more. And the fourth wall break is super interesting because I love, one of my favorite, if not my favorite TV show is Fleabag. And after the second season came out, that was when I was writing Pathei Mathos. So I figured, well, like, what if we incorporate this? And the way we did it, in the original, when we shot Pathei Mathos, I would actually look at the camera and say those lines. And in my mind, it was like, oh, this is really good. Sure, it's a little, plagiarizing Fleabag a little, but, whatever. I'm a student. I'm learning. I'll do it. So we shot it, and I thought that it worked really well on the page. And when I saw the assembly cut, I had a panic attack. I was like, I remember going to the philosophy building at USC and just thinking, wow, my career's over. There's no way I can do this. This is so bad. But Scorsese has this thing about, he says that if you don't get physically ill after watching the first cut of your film, something is wrong. And I felt that so strongly. I was up all night. And then I got up the next day and I had solutions. I knew exactly what we needed to fix, and this was the number one thing. So that's when I spoke to Evan, and I was like, okay, let's freeze the camera and hear her, but let's not play the dialogue like as she speaks. We need to find a way to like keep the audience connected and during those moments, and let them know that this is something happening inside her mind, almost as if her mind is glitching. That's the idea that she's like a scratch. She's a CG with a scratch on, and it glitches. And so we knew from the second cut, I guess, because the first one was when I was actually speaking them, and oh my God, it was so bad. But we knew from that moment on, I thought this was going to ruin the movie, but this decision, I think, really made all of our other decisions kind of tied together. It really added this, characteristic to the movie, like this unusual take to the movie. It added cohesion in this craziness that we were doing, essentially. So Evan and I went through a series of glitch effects. Poor Evan would try everything, and I think we may have gone through like 5 or 6 different styles of glitching and actual effects that you would just drop to the timeline. And then essentially Evan made this one up. Like he just like froze, I think like a couple of frames, and then he would like let a couple of frames play normally. And anyways, he did that, and the moment I saw it, I was like, okay, this is what we're looking for. This is it. So it's technically an effect never seen before in films because Evan came up with it. But yeah, that was the reasoning behind it. So it definitely had a lot of meaning behind the decision, but it came from just something that we did and it didn't work. So just being resourceful and creative out of a flaw that didn't work out.
I have to say, kudos to you and Evan on that, because it really is your glitch effect. I mean, you can see when you see it, it's just it's done in editing, and it's not like a special effect or a plugin or anything. And you see it just shifting between 2 frames in a jitter. Like you said, I love that you're calling it a glitch. I always thought of it as a jitter, but yeah, it's a glitch. And, it's just, that's the kind of creativity. Like you said, you created something brand new for this, which is funny because it's such a good effect. I hope you like write a feature someday and use it, because like as long as you guys
did try using like a different my other movie Solemn, I mentioned it to you. Just played in Brazil, and I got to see it a couple of days ago in the movie theater. And there is a little glitch effect, but on purpose. It's a super different glitch, because I know we repeat ourselves all the time as filmmakers, but I didn't want it, I use a different glitch. I think that Pathei Mathos glitch will remain there until maybe, who knows, I shoot a feature in the future that allows for some exchange of glitching.
Someday someone else is just going to come up with it. So, but anyway, and I was going to add that it reminds me, like, creative people, when they come up with creative solutions, like, it's not the same thing, but it reminds me, that film Election that Alexander Payne made with, oh my God, I had her name and then I just lost it. But like he would do freeze frames, but like the least attractive freeze frame ever. Like he'd get the actor like with their like mouth open and one eye closed, and just hold it there and then do voiceover.
No, I haven't seen that. Well, I should check it out.
Oh my God. It's shame on me. It's the one where Matthew Broderick is the principal, and it sucks. I've
written it down, so I'll check it out.
Okay.
Election. We did look at, you try to do research when, you're stuck with a problem. But the funny thing is that, you never really find what you're looking for. And then you do something, and then someone's like, oh, someone already did what you did. And so you invented the world for a couple of seconds, and then you realize that, you didn't do it. You got to a solution, but all kudos, all brownie points to Evan, who really worked for this. Without Evan's crazy brain, we could not have gotten Pathei Mathos to work. A normal person could not have edited Pathei Mathos.
Very cool. And plus, and also talk about discipline. I mean, as far as filmmaking goes, you don't overuse it either. Like you use it a couple times, but you didn't, let's just say a less refined or skilled filmmaker might have said, oh, I like that. Do it all the time. And instead, like, you just use it sparingly, like here and there where you need to communicate when trauma is hitting her, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was always something that we would talk about, how this movie had a lot to it. Like there's so much symbolism and so much, I mean, everything has a reason to be there. We were really careful with what was in the frame and what wasn't. And I've heard from people that, when they watch it again, they pick up on different things, on details, on like something like a small example of that is it's Christmas time, and we decorated the gas station with like Christmas decorations, and we play Christmas music, and that is a song that transforms into one of the flashbacks. And I mean, nobody really notices that, but it was really important to me because there's this idea that on Christmas everything is like warm and fuzzy, and the fact that this is happening to her while Christmas is going on is this tiny, tiny thing that I was using in my actor prep that I wanted to bring in to the store. So we knew that there was so much, and if someone picked up on everything, it would be really overwhelming. It's already overwhelming with a number of flashbacks that we have in one short film, in one 15-minute short film. So with the glitching, because it's such an obvious, like, here's on your face, like this is a super obvious, tool, it felt right to kind of use it less. I actually felt like we were maybe a little, overusing it when it came out. I had no idea like what to expect. So I had the impression that we were overusing. And then I learned to understand that whatever we overuse helps build the idea that this is strange and unusual. And yeah, it may feel like too much, but that's kind of the nature of the issue we were trying to convey, trauma.
As an audience member, I don't think it was too much. And am I wrong, or are most of the glitches also coinciding with those looks that break the fourth wall?
Yeah, we would do, the way we did is that we had, I think, 2 glitches that were independent, or no, not independent, that would ignite a small flashback, because they grow, right? So first you have like a really small one, and then you have a slightly bigger one, and then the image starts to connect with the glitching. So like she looks down at her hands, and then we glitch to the past when her hands are all bloody. And when, she, like right after the crash. So we start with like a light association. We have like words as well. When a character says everything will be fine, the fine is already a word in the sentence of someone else, but already glitched into the traumatic event. So we do a lot of these associations. So it was important that the glitch wouldn't just like happen, that the glitch would always indicate something bigger that we showed little by little. So every time it glitched, you knew something was going to happen. But you didn't know what, because you weren't fed that much information to be aware of the plot.
For sure. And I'll add more applause for you and the film is that by doing it, it just also, I don't know, I think it just expands the viewing experience in it. And it kind of, this was not your intention, I know, but it also tells the viewer, I think, that, hey, this is a film that's going to break some rules, and this is a film that's going to take you somewhere original. Like all those early experiences of watching the film, like it's a ride. Like I love that you submitted as art house experimental, but like it's almost thriller too. Like
to be honest, Jeff, like I always considered this movie a thriller, and I actually don't think it's experimental at all, but I have learned that American film festivals will often classify it as experimental. As a matter of fact, we have won a Best Experimental Award at a festival. And one of my mentors, her name is Clementine. She used to work for USC. I mean, I consider her a mentor. I don't know if she would consider herself, would consider me a mentee, but I definitely learn a lot and I'm hugely inspired by her. But she told me, and she has worked for film festivals. She's really knowledgeable. And she gave me a tip that was, if you submit to festivals that have the experimental category, if you submit to festivals that are mostly narrative, but have a category for, experimental filmmaking, submit to the experimental category, but don't submit as an experimental movie to an experimental film festival. And that, I think, said everything that I needed to know. Outside of the US, this movie has never been considered experimental. But inside, it happens sometimes. So this is just like sort of like one of those out of like not really related to the film, more to the film market, because the movie is so weird and non-linear. Some people associate it to experimental, when the rule, I guess, for being experimental is if there's not like a narrative that you can follow. And in this case, even though there's not a linearity, there's definitely a character and sort of like she wants something and they're opposing forces. So I don't think it's an experimental film, but that's just kind of how you do as a filmmaker.
Well, it's funny. I obviously I'll take the bait and talk about categories at film festivals as someone who's a festival runner of two. Is that we debated, man. I really wanted to add this category because every once in a while we get something really, and so I mean I love. So we debated whether to call it avant-garde. We debated whether to call it art house. We debated on so we went with art house / experimental because even if right because yeah. I guess some people are really strong about what experimental means. And like, you know, I don't know, sometimes it means an Andy Warhol film that's 8 hours of watching the sun go down on the side of a building, but, you know, with no story. But it definitely is art house, right? Like the idea of an art house, like this isn't, I don't know what I'm a film snob. I mean, you can't be part of film festivals without like, you know, I mean, I have my guilty pleasures, but art house cinema where it's like, okay, this is made for people who love cinema and people who want to get more out of it. And I got no problem with the people who like their favorite thing in the world is a sitcom with a stand-up comedian and a wife who's smarter than him. Like, fine, that's great. But some of us want to watch stuff that we've never seen before.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that, I mean, I am a bit of a film snob, sure. I mean, I studied film studies at USC, surrounded by a lot of other snobs. So I guess you do become a little snobbish with a film degree. It comes with it. But at the end of the day, I'm no authority on what is and what isn't experimental. I definitely like to get creative and try new things in my movies, but I don't think that I have the guts and bravery of like a Carolee Schneemann or like an actual experimental filmmaker, like a Maya Deren. These are people that inspire me, but I can't say that my movies are, you know, dialogue with the style that they use or don't use, or, you know, so I don't think that Pathei Mathos is experimental, but it's only out of respect for actual experimental filmmaking that deserves a place in the world and often doesn't get that place because non-experimental films kind of take over because they're a little weird, you know? So I wish Pathei Mathos wouldn't be considered experimental for that reason. But if someone that knows more than I do thinks differently, then I'd love to hear that because, you know, I'm always learning. And yeah, I've made one experimental short before for school, and it's one of my favorite things. I've never sent it anywhere, but it's the movie that I actually go back to and watch the most that I've made, which I don't do that with my movies, but that one I like to watch because it's just like a sensorial sort of like lots of water movie. I might
ask you to send that one over, but it's funny because listening to you talk, by the way, listening to you talk about this makes me wish, man, maybe we should separate art house and experimental into their own categories and see who submits to what. Because like
that would be a cool social experiment as well,
wouldn't it? Because like we used to have, it actually used to say, I think it was thriller / horror. Because like if someone's made a genuine thriller, like that's so hard to categorize too, right? Like, is it dramatic? Is it this? Like, where do you submit that? If it's just like drama, comedy, you know, whatever, sci-fi, like, but then combining thriller and horror was totally not fair. So
it is. So, I mean, I have to say, I find this for someone that like lives and breathes film like I do. I wish that I could have a stronger sense of genre like that. Oftentimes I start movies with no clue, and then I kind of find it along the way, and I finish the movie and I realize that the movie is only that genre for me. Everyone else thinks it's something else. I just finished one that we shot in California that went to the TIFF filmmaker lab that was developed in the lab. And I always thought it as a family drama, definitely because I'm an actor, and that's like the core dramatic question of that movie. And then we finished it, and now that we're sending it to festivals and planning our life, it's we're calling it a dystopian drama, I think. I forgot. But it makes sense because it plays with the idea of an apocalypse, but it's not sci-fi, but it's technically still in the genre movie category. And I just think it's a drama. So I definitely I'm grateful for the help of people that have a more business mindset than I do, because they're able to pick out, like, to understand these things better. And it really helps the movie to be placed in the right category. So I'm grateful to be with those people.
It does. I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, we could I actually think our first year or two, it was just short film, any genre. Like, it was just, but the truth is, like, when it comes to, but then that doesn't encourage people who are making more challenging stuff to submit, right? Because they're like, well, if it's just everything. And then I got to admit, like, awards don't matter, but when the jury is just, I mean, when a jury is watching, 30 shorts, and there's some really creative, original, genre-breaking stuff, and then there's a tragic drama about just your classic, I'll just be a jerk and say, I'm a cancer survivor, so I'll just say a cancer drama. Everyone just votes for that damn cancer drama. And like, and as a cancer survivor, I'm like, dude, that actually wasn't, like, that's what a non-cancer survivor would say about cancer. Like, I can really tell the difference between a film from something. Anyway, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like,
no, I
you
feel
gotta
like
have genres just so that you don't have Pathei Mathos competing with something that's, award bait.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that Sherman Oaks and film festivals I'm glad for film festivals they're mindful of that, because it's so important. I think you mentioned in the beginning that features kind of get a afterlife after festivals, and short films kind of die, and that's really a shame, because all feature filmmakers were short filmmakers once. And if you think about it, there's so much, like, room for short films to be watched in people's lives. Like, you can watch a short film on your bus to work. You can watch a short film, like, before you head to class. Like, you can find different lengths and different moods and the same way that you can Netflix a movie based on your mood. You can do the same thing for short films and actually, like, spend less time. And time is such an issue these days. So I was told by someone a lot smarter than me that I can't be a short filmmaker if I only watch feature films. And I take that so seriously now. Like, I go to film festivals and I watch the short films too. I don't just watch the features, even though they are, like, the fancy kind of, like, main course of the festival. And yeah, I think that there's room for short films, and people doing things like what you're doing with the Amazon Discover Indie Film series kind of helps us see that, it's worth doing this, that making short films, it doesn't have to be just because you don't have money to make features. There are so many stories that work better in the short format and should be valued as such,
I totally agree. I mean, not to jump on my soapbox, but I have quantitative proof that the public actually will respond to high quality. Like, I think a lot of people just figure, people either want a TV series or a feature film. And there's just this, I don't know, there's this wall up for shorts. But when Discover Indie Film, the TV series, I think the first 3 seasons is when we were included with Prime. And we got up to 10,000 unique viewers a week. Like, 10,000 people a week were just, like, watching high quality shorts that were, like, handpicked from the festival circuit. And then sadly, Amazon, I mean, they made a smart business decision, which was like, oh, instead of people watching your stuff for free, and then we send you $1. I mean, honestly, like, they started paying like 0.001 cent per hour or something, but they said, no, you should have to charge $1 an episode, and then we'll take half of that. And I get it. It's their servers. Like, it makes more sense. But, like, if there was, and I think, like, what Netflix's Love, Death and Robots, that proves that, like, people will respond to short form content as long as it's good and creative.
Yeah, and Love, Death, and Robots is so groundbreaking as well. Like, it mixes so many different, it's genre hybrid, which I think is the way filmmaking is heading anyways. Hybridity is the key to the future. But even if you think about it, the animation that won the Oscar last year or 2 years ago, If Anything Happens, I Love You, is a Netflix short. It's so, so many people watch that. I watch that. And I think it shows that there is room. And I mean, like you're saying, 10,000 people in a week. And this is from one website that, it's not nearly as popular as the Netflix, for instance. I don't think Amazon has, I mean, this is not an actual fact that I'm saying, I'm just speculating, but I don't think that there are more Amazon Prime users than there are Netflix users.
Especially on video, 100%. Like,
yeah. And Amazon Prime Video. Yeah. I mean, the Prime, I'm sure. Yeah. Prime.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. If people are ordering underwear, Amazon wins. But if they're watching content, in fact, I know there's a lot of great films on Prime Video that I haven't watched because I get drawn to HBO Max and Netflix first. It's funny.
Yeah. I'm also an HBO stan here. That's, I think, what I use the most out of
those. I think it has the best stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, because it's not a bunch of things. It doesn't have as many things as Netflix, but I think it's more curated. I don't know. I'm trying to get Mubi or the Criterion channel, but that is so expensive. The Criterion collection. Yeah, so if anyone from the Criterion collection is listening to this podcast, give us a discount. Give the indie filmmaker a discount. Okay, it's really expensive.
That's true. That's funny. It's that High TV thing I told you about. We actually use the same platform as Criterion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool platform. All right, so I know I don't have Criterion Channel, but I feel like if I won the lottery and I could just stop working for the rest of my life and just watch movies, I would totally get it.
They have such great, if you can't find a movie anywhere, it's probably in the Criterion channel. That's how good it is, especially international films.
And they have all the bonus stuff, right? Like, because Criterion, I mean, I'm old, right? So like when Criterion first came out, I think it was like big old laser discs were like the Criterion Collection laser disc. And
I know that you have like a DVD.
Audio content, like you could watch the film and then watch it with like a film studies professor discussing the film the whole way through. And it was wonderful.
I didn't even know about all these add-ons. See, I don't have it, so I don't know about all the privileges. But who knows? One day.
It'd be fun. Someday I'll push you. Will you do an extra audio track on Pathei Mathos where you and the editor discuss things as the film plays? That'd be funny.
That'd be so much fun. That'd be fun. Evan and I could just gossip about the set and like all the crazy things that happened, because so many insane things happened with Pathei Mathos. I don't know if I talked about this one thing where we were supposed to shoot the scene with where my character, like with the swings, that kind of happens in this like limbo kind of foggy space in the movie. It was supposed to be shot in a garden. I really wanted that. And we struggled a lot, but found one finally. And we were supposed to shoot that at like 3 a.m. And then suddenly all the sprinklers went on and in all of our equipment and everything that we had. And we just thought that we were either going to get electrocuted or just have to pay so much money because of damages. And lost that day, like lost the rest of the day. And then we pushed the scene to the next day, which was the last day we had to shoot. And everything was being shot in the warehouse. Like that's when we shot all the flashbacks in the car. And everything with the car was shot there. And then these scenes on the snorri cam where like my character is walking and then you see the camera kind of snorri camming with her. And then we just decided to shoot it then. And it was not what we had planned or anything, but we just made it work. We decided that it would work with what we were trying to convey. And instead of trying to make a real space seem unreal, which was what we were trying to do, we just went to a space that was less, that was easier to be made kind of subconscious, easier to have this more subjective take on it, and we shot it there. And when people watch Pathei Mathos, I often get that that's their favorite part, the stuff with the swings. And that's so funny because that's like the one part that I didn't really write, that the craziness of filmmaking wrote for me, and we just adapted. And like, yeah, I went to like a tree graveyard the morning before we shot that and picked up a bunch of tree chunks to use in the car scene, and not one of them ever made to any of the cuts, which is, I was carrying this huge like tree trunk. And yeah, I mean, it was just some crazy times. I'm sure Evan would remember even more craziness than I do because I was in it. And yeah.
Yeah, you had a lot on your plate, I'm sure. But I'll add that what you did is perfect because you couldn't get exactly what was on the page, but you got the spirit of what was on the page.
Yeah, and I really liked the way it turned out. Like, I loved all the fog, which is something that we wouldn't be able to have controlled in like the open space, like the external location we had. We could see some fog, but I don't think we'd be able to. We actually only had one fog machine for that scene if we were to shoot it outside, and we used maybe 4 when we shot it indoors. Like really large fog machines, not the tiny ones, like yeah.
Yeah. So you really just filled the space.
Yeah, we couldn't see each other or the camera. We had to like open the window after every take.
Is that those machines that burn vegetable oil?
I don't know. To be honest, I was not in charge of the fog machines. There's definitely a type of oil. And dare I say, we didn't really use a lot of oil because I remember that we turned the machine on for a little bit, and then we would like just woof. I don't know what's the verb for that. And then we would do this over and over again a couple of times. But the machines were so powerful that I don't remember anyone having to like stop, wait for the oil to be like refilled or anything. So I don't actually think we bought any because we borrowed one of the machines and the warehouse had others that just allowed us to use. So yeah, because that's something that I became mindful of as well. Like, how green can we make the set, and how, I try to get better at that. That is a challenge. But I try to be mindful of stuff like that because I come from a country that I would like to say emphasizes things like that, save for the past 4 years when we had, an idiot for president. But yeah, we have like a huge national treasure, and it's important to, preserve all of those things.
You have a national treasure, and then the rest of the world turns to Brazil and says, can you maintain that for us? Because it's kind of helping the entire planet.
Yeah, and we used to do such a great job. Like, Brazil had a really like strong rate of reforestation of the Amazon up until like I think 2015 or something, and then massive fires happened as all the world was able to see. But our hope is with this new president, a new old president, because he was already the most successful Brazilian president we had, and he's back. So hopefully it's going to be good, not just for culture overall, to make movies and things, but also for life, as in the air we breathe. So yes, there's optimism in the horizon for sure.
Yeah, I'll share with the podcast listeners that I think we I think we rescheduled this a ton of times, right? And this chat, and like when you emailed me, I'm actually down in Brazil for the election. I was like, oh my God, that's like, I mean, the United States so rarely pays attention to things outside the United States. And the fact that election between Lula and Bolsonaro, like the fact that we had international news, like told you just how important this was. And I was like,
John Oliver had a whole program, like a whole show about Bolsonaro. And I was shocked. Like, I have seen like Brazil fall apart, under this guy's government, and I was in the US for a lot of it. So I would see how other people just would not care. Like, it would just not be important. And then when I saw John Oliver talking about Bolsonaro, it was actually banned from Brazil HBO or something. Like, they didn't screen it here. There was some shit like that. And of course, people edit subtitles, and it's on YouTube. Because John Oliver is, such an icon for I guess like whistleblowing in that sense. And anyways, but that really showed me how the world was really paying attention to us. And I came here for the election and worked on a lot of campaign videos, not official campaign videos, but everyone in film, independent film, kind of mobilized. And I directed 3 campaign videos, and everybody just let everybody use their equipment, and we just did everything for free. Nobody charged anything. We didn't charge anyone. And we would just shoot these things really fast and spread them on social media. We got like thousands of views, because that's an election. This was an election won on social media, right? So everybody was trying to fight for the democracy. And yeah, I think we're all very happy that we won't have another 4 years of Bolsonaro.
Well, and you were facing, I mean, now we're discussing Brazil, but you were facing the possibility. I mean, it was clearly not going to be a fair election. So you had to use social media to overcome Bolsonaro trying to use state power to make it an unfair election. So the fact that you were able to overcome his cheating, oh my God.
Yeah, kind of like that was like the big question, right? Like he essentially was buying votes. He was giving people more money on social programs than ever. And yeah, he was legally, I guess, buying votes, but definitely amorally. So we really I had never seen anything like that in the culture in Brazil. Like filmmaking was greatly affected by this government. All money was cut. We used to have a Ministry of Culture that is now coming back, but it was abolished. Just like, there's a number of science, the Ministry of Science was cut, all these things that we consider important, but many in the right wing were just excluded from history books, essentially. And so it was really difficult to be a filmmaker in Brazil. And I mean, I was privileged that I was in the US studying during this time, because I could use equipment and resources from USC or from friends. I didn't rely on the Brazilian government. And now I'm going through my first experience of making a movie that's 100% Brazilian, not a co-production. Most of my movies have been co-productions with Brazil, but now I'm going through the journey that all filmmakers here go through. But it was just very difficult. And now, very inhumane. And that's only talking about film, right? I mean, gay people, Black people, indigenous people really suffered even more than they have already suffered under Bolsonaro. So now we are hoping for better days here in Brazil.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful story, and hopefully a sign of good things to come globally, right? Because for a little while, I mean, I don't mean to get, obviously we're both on the same left-ish or whatever. You know, I consider myself a moderate liberal, but I'm pretty liberal. But like the fact that, oh man, the list: Hungary, Turkey, the United States, Brazil, there were so many democracies that had someone in charge who didn't give a fuck about democracy and cared way more about keeping their fascist. They prefer fascism actually to democracy.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, right now there are people who are still protesting the elections, the result of the election.
They attacked the police station, right? They attacked.
The police just found a number of guns, Jesus, gun names. I can't forget. I can't remember them in Portuguese or English. Machine guns. That's what I mean. Like the kind of automatic kind of.
We call them assault weapons now, right?
Whatever they are, they just found a number of those here with the people that are protesting elections. Officials are getting arrested. People in the government are sponsoring them. You see cops in Brazil abusing people of color and people in the left wing as well. And then you see them having coffee with these people who are asking for a coup d'etat to happen, you know? So that's kind of how Brazil goes. There's still people protesting, but we still go out in the street and we're able to kind of get democracy back. There were these huge acts on the streets with Lula came to my city, to a bunch of capitals, and you would see thousands of people in the streets. And even though it's really hard to live in a country where so many people seem to just disavow key elements of democracy that has enabled people to go to school without having money, and just graduate from college without having had any education before. They just seem to ignore all those things and put our society in danger, but there are still people that are fighting for the right things in Brazil.
Well, I'll tie it back to your filmmaking, that it's so cool that you were able to use your skill set and make videos and to put things on social media that could get the views and inspire people and hopefully make a difference. That's it's excellent that you care so much. And it's excellent that you were able to use all these skills you have and apply it to something you care about.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've had like a bit of awakening in those regards, because I really like making movies like Pathei, Mathos, and Solemn, and this next one, Bleed Don't Die. They're all Pathei, Mathos, and Solemn are a little weirder. Bleed Don't Die is a little more conventional, I guess. But they're all technical challenges to me. They're inspired by films and filmmakers that have long inspired me. But my next project in Brazil, I may shoot one in the US before that, but my next project in Brazil is very much based on all that we just talked about, on politics, essentially. I come from a city that is home to many of our nation's best filmmakers. But that's also kind of built around this design, this segregationist design, like we call it urbanism of segregation, where like really tall buildings put like rich people away from the actual city, and the streets are designed for cars, not for people. It makes it really hard to be a person, an average person. And when I say average, I mean literally anyone that you picked out off the street. Like, it's hard to be a person in this city, and that really drives people away. It doesn't promote intercultural moments within our own city. So my next short film in Brazil, called Seashore, actually talks a lot about this. So I'm excited to be making more socially realistic films, I guess, because although Bleed Don't Die, Pathei, Mathos, and Solemn all speak about feelings that are valid and intimate, they all use more magical realism or fictitious tools than this next one. This next one does have a lot of surrealism, but it's a social drama as well, a very Brazilian social drama. So I'm excited to kind of experiment in this new phase of my career.
That sounds excellent. Well, we've gone on for a bit. I don't want to go forever. I mean, I could probably chat with you for another hour. I swear to God. I'm only saying this because, we both probably have lives and such, but is there anything you want to add to the end? It's great to hear, by the way, that since you were at the festival last year, you're still creating stuff and in spite of traveling and in spite of devoting yourself to the election, you still have like projects going and stuff. That's great to hear.
Yeah, I try to keep going, and working on a couple of projects right now. I guess what the things that I could add are, well, the other project I'm working on is I just outlined and kind of am finishing a draft of my first feature film, which is to be shot in Brazil in the distant future. But it's exciting. I think every first-time filmmaker, I think we kind of like torture ourselves a lot over this first film idea, right? Like, it has to be right. It has to represent everything that I can offer and all the ideas in my mind. And then I just tried to take like a seat back and like not pressure myself as much to create like this ridiculously complicated story, and came up with something that I think is quite simple. I don't know if other people will share this opinion, but I think it's quite simple. Either way, it's something to work on, and I'm excited. But if anyone listening to this wants to get to know my work or get in touch or collaborate in things, I have a website and Instagram as well, I guess. So Instagram is kind of how people connect these days. So I'm sure it's going to be like written, but my website is my name, vitoriavasconcellos.com. And my Instagram is at Vasconcellos, VIC. So that's my last name and then VIC. Also, if you write Vitória Vasconcellos, I'm sure you'll find it. There can't be that many Vitória Vasconcellos in the world. I think
true. It's very cool. And I'll add, I always, podcasts have show notes on most apps that people listen to them on. So I have a clickable link for Vitória Vasconcellos on. So there'll be a clickable link for both your website and Instagram. Might as well.
Awesome. That's easier than people having to memorize my last name. So yeah.
That's true. And although I could see whatever. I was about to be silly and say I could see the name Vascon and then cellos like the instrument. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Whatever helps.
You could have a row of cellos be your symbol for your.
I think that would be misleading based on how untalented I am in the musical realm. I play guitar very, very poorly. I don't want people knowing this.
Understood. Well, there's all kinds of arts, though.
True. All right, well, I'm admirer of music.
Yeah. I don't know a filmmaker who doesn't secretly want to be a musician. Right?
Well, I guess I feel like there's people who have actual something to give to music and talent. I think I have something to say when it comes to film and performance, but when it comes to music, I'll let the people who actually have something to say and the means through which say it to take over, and I'll just take a seat and listen.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I just say that because it's just hard not to wish that, and I guess I'm actually just projecting there because as a kid, I took a year or two of piano and then a year of guitar, and I was loving it and I was pretty talented. And then something else happened, when I got to middle school and I just dropped music. And oh my God, if I could sit down at a piano and play something I wanted to play today, I wish young me had given old me the opportunity,
Jeff, it sounds like in the opening or closing night of next year's Sherman Oaks, we should have a concert. Not we as in you and I, but you should organize a concert where you are the one act. And then all your dreams will come true. I don't see how that should happen.
Well, I appreciate you, but I'm very happy that these film festivals are about the films and the filmmakers. And I honestly, I've even heard of festivals where the people running the festival will show a short they made that really sucks, or they'll do a little performance, and it's nah, I'm here to celebrate the new generation,
Well, see, we talked about this earlier. You're too nice. You're being too nice. You should have a special. You don't have to be in competition. Just do. I think there's a name for that. It's encore or something. When it's a screening that's not a part of the actual, you can't say that it's a festival selection, but it's a homage almost, sort of, or I don't know, just something out of it. Just a way to have fun and realize your dream of being a rock star.
Well, look, I appreciate it. I don't think I'll ever do it. I'll
start a secret petition. You will know until it happens.
That's true. Who knows what will happen? I thought you were going to say, heck, if anything I do ever allows me the free time, I would take piano lessons again, or I'd take guitar lessons again, because why not? I would probably be able to pick it up. I don't know. But I was also a big lover of the bass. All right. Well, you named your website and social media. Those will be clickable. I'll just ramble off the stuff at the end of the podcast so that we will actually stop recording. And then for everyone listening, then we'll start recording again, because there'll be a podcast after this one released a couple days later that will be Vitória answering the Discover Indie Film 4 questions, which are favorite films, an underrated film, an overrated film, and a lesser known film that people should seek out. So that's always a fun movie discussion. I'm just wrapping this up, so I guess we can get to that. So I mentioned that Vitória's film, Pathei Mathos, is in the Discover Indie Film TV series. So go to Prime Video on a nice big TV, open that app, and just type in Discover Indie Film. It auto-completes pretty early because thankfully no one else is really using this title. I'll be really bummed when there's a Discover something else. But anyway, watch season 7. It is, I think, $7.99 US for the season. I don't know. I know they, and it's only in the US and UK, by the way. I wish it was elsewhere, but I think people in other countries are pretty savvy about VPNs too. So,
yeah, I know I am.
Yeah, you have to be, right? But and please just get up season 7, and in episode 2 you'll see Vitoria's film with it's an episode. It's a 30-minute episode or so with 3 wonderful films. It's got one called How to End a Conversation, and then there's Pathei Mathos in the center, and then a lovely film called Helper afterwards. So enjoy that. If you want to learn more about the podcast or the TV series it gave birth to, you can just go to discoverindiefilm.com, and on social media, it's at DIFwins. And we talked about Sherman Oaks Film Festival many times. We hold that sucker every November. You can learn more if you go to ShermanOaksFF.com, and it's at ShermanOaksFF on social media. And it has a sister festival every June. And we didn't bring it up, but we talked about it before we started recording. But Vitória was on the Filmmakers Board, giving out the Filmmakers Award. I love when filmmakers come back and join that jury, because I think it's so meaningful that there's awards given by a jury of one's peers.
Yeah, I think so. It's like the SEG Awards when you're an actor, getting an award that's being given to you by your own community certainly must feel special.
I think so. I think it means a lot. So our June festival is called Film Invasion Los Angeles, and you can look it up at filminvasionla.com, and it's at Film Invasion LA on social media. And I'll add one last thing, which is if you got a smart TV and you want to check out a cool app, you can search for Hi TV, HITV, or on Apple, it's HI-TV. And if you want to learn more about this thing I'm saying, you just go to watchhitv.com. That's another thing I'm involved in because I'm glutton for punishment, apparently. But Vitória, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for listening.